Right, now that we've officially started, we can stop yakking about random bits and bobs of Obsidian and actually talk about something a little bit more specific with Obsidian.
Nah, let's just keep yakking. Specific us?
Well, yeah, we're specifically talking about the November 2023 1.5.0 desktop update. Uh, yeah, it's actually tangent already. On Friday, so yesterday for me, probably last week for those who are listening to this, I posted a video about Canvas Candy upgrades.
Yes, yeah, I do want to. I want to talk about that because you looked very excited and sounded very excited in that video.
I was, and I am, but that wasn't the point I was getting at. The point I was getting at was I read a comment this morning that said they were disappointed in my title because they thought it was an Obsidian update. And I'm like, well, I didn't say update on the thumbnail, which is what I typically do. I didn't mention insider in any of the packaging, which is what I typically do. And it said upgrade, which isn't update. So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, okay, how would I repackage that? What would you call the Canvas Candy?
Sexy. I was watching your video and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to buy that now. I'm going to buy that now.
I did get a couple of people coming to the Discord and ask me, so what's your affiliation with TFT Hacker? I'm like, there isn't. It's just cool, and I wanted to make a video on it.
It's really cool. It does things that I would want and replace more software that I basically everything is going to slowly move into Obsidian
Interesting.
because I
I
can use that instead of Whimsical to build systems for people and like framework outlines and stuff like that. And now I have all the functionality of like that, and I know I could build it myself, and I could do all the CSS using AI as well. To be fair, but I'm like that is such a cool implementation of it, and it's so freaking easy
Yep.
that it's just like
Yep. I know
I
some people are not going to like the fact you've got to pay for it, but I mean, one, it's a one-time fee, which I like. It's not a subscription fee. You're not tied in. Once you've got it, you've got it. I like those sorts of things. And two, it takes a lot of time to develop stuff. Yes, plugins are free, but plugins often are developed by people that are learning those skills to do a job. Like they're either computer science students or they're people inside of computer science or developers already, and it's them practicing things elsewhere or doing it for their own. And it's a little bit different from TFT Hacker, who is interested in all of the different things, and he has made plugins already, like lots of plugins already. So it's not something that is sort of just, oh yeah, I'll throw that out. And he's developing it. There's a community in it. He's spending a lot of time there. So to me, it's a bargain.
absolutely. I say $20. That's insane.
Exactly. It's not even that much when you consider all the other things that goes with it, with the support, the updating, and everything that you would sort of expect from plugins and things. But because it's a purchased product, there is a quality standard there, which we don't have with plugins. If a plugin developer decides to go, that's it. They've gone.
And you just don't get nothing.
Yeah, you don't get anything from it. So I
Oh,
guess talking about the canvas before we go into the insider updates, because I think they're related. Well, they are related to me anyway. How I'm using the Canvas Candy is I'm more practical than aesthetic, for those that don't already know. I much more look at the like what's the point? What's the functionality? What's the feature that I get? The headers and the footers are the main ones that I'm using
yeah, that's pretty cool.
because typical cards that you'd use, you have information on the card. Great. And you can color the card. Great. But apart from that, you can't add a label to it. You can't say that this is this area. It has to be in a group. So you have to add a group to a card to add a label, which is stupid. It's just dumb. So what you'd need to do previously, or now in default, if you wanted to add some sort of header or label to a card, is create a blank card, then embed the file in the blank card and then add the header in the card, which is just a hacky workaround. With this, you can just add a callout block at the top of the file and it turns it into a header and you can see it and it's nice. It's not a hacky workaround. Same with the footer, same with the labels on the left and right. So when I'm displaying things on a canvas, not only can I separate the cards visually with colors, but I can also separate them with some sort of label, whether it's a header, a footer, or a left-right label. And those two separations of cards visually helps me navigate the canvas quicker. That's the functionality.
Yeah, it's that because one of the things I found, because I was using for a long time for DMing, I was using the canvas, but trying to navigate all of that was a bit of a pain after a while because there's just so much going on the card. And so I moved to something else, and I have two side panels now, on the left and the right. One is with all the information about my party that I'm currently running, and on the other side is the initiative. But I could see myself using Canvas again because of all the little things that they've added, and it's just so cool. So pretty.
The other things that I do use, I don't use the parallelograms. I've tried it, doesn't quite work. I've used the circle, but I've used the circle as a button. It's essentially a button, so you can add a link inside of because it's just a card, to anywhere. And because it's a circle, it looks different. You could use the squircle sort of shape, rounded, that's the one, the rounded command to make it look like an actual button. But I just put a number there. So for my chapters, I've got chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For you could have like campaign 1, 2, 3 as circle buttons, and then click on it, and the one can go to a canvas. So you could
could also completely replace. Currently, I've got folder files for each of my campaigns. We were working on it after the last one. I could turn that into a canvas, and it would probably be a little bit more flexible too.
Well, obviously you've seen what the canvas can look like inside of the video. If you haven't seen it, I suggest going and having a look. But you can essentially make a website style page in the canvas with all the lines and the dashes and the borders and things. And because of the links inside of Obsidian, you can make it look like a website. So instead of it being from file to file, you can have essentially buttons anywhere inside of the quote file page, canvas file, because you don't need to deal with the text, because it's not text, it's cards. And because you can make them transparent, you can just put text anywhere and make it a link.
The one that was like, oh, that's really cool, and the lines and the bottom. I'm like, because I'm very visual. I think that's where you and I differ quite. I like a visual view. And that right there is like, yes, I love that. That is so nice and so easy to use. And yeah, I'm excited to play with that and get that up and running.
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be, with Canvas Candy, lots of potential for creating website style canvas pages for navigation. I use dashboard with data view, but you may not need data view if, you can just put, you might use data view, but you might use data view in lists, in cards, rather than having an entire file.
Yeah, that'd be so nice.
Because then you don't need a file in Obsidian. You can just put the data view query in there, and then which will relate to what we're going to talk about later with databases and stuff. And also the borders. What I've done with which you actually might find this useful for D&D stuff. For my book, I have so I have different canvases for different overviews. I tried doing it all on one, but as soon as you start adding like 30 files and like 15 to 20 data view queries, Canvas starts having a bit of a moment. It starts going, give me a sec. So I split them up, and I have a character map, which helps me understand what the F is going on with my characters, because I've got like 60 at this point, which keeping track of 60 characters is not simple. And I have bullet points in the character files of key points of information, points that I've added inside of the scenes and chapters as I've gone on, but the relationships can sort of get lost. And what the character actually means in the story, like, is the character on the good side? Are they on the bad side? Are they pretending to be on the good side, pretending to be on the bad side? Like, where are they from? What group are they in? What relation do they have going on at the moment? All that stuff. It just becomes like paragraphs and paragraphs of text. And when I look at a canvas, I want to be able to see all of that. And with headers, footers, colors, and border differences, I can show all of that. So in the header, I can say what group, like social group they're in. With the footer, I can say the specific pieces of information that I need that isn't just like character specific, like they did this thing, or they are in this scene, or this event that's happening right now. Then with the border, if it's a dotted border, it can mean something. If it's a dashed border, it can mean something else. If it's a thick border, it can mean something else. And then I can add a color to it. And if I really want to go ham, I can add a gradient to it as well.
Yeah, the gradient. I think that's where I paused the video because I had to go. But you were like, and I can do gradients. The joy, it was so good. But it's a fantastic plan. I didn't get it till I watched the video.
I was the same. I will fully admit that when I saw TFT Hacker talking about it, Canvas Candy, you can add aesthetics and flowchart stuff. I was like, cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, great. And I did watch a couple of the other videos about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not throwing shade, but the videos didn't entice me to use the tool. Like they showed what you could use, which obviously is what my video does. But it didn't feel, maybe it was the presentation. I don't know. Maybe it was the people that was presenting it weren't as, I don't know, as excited as I was. I don't know. It just didn't feel like a, hey, look at this thing. This is really cool. It was this is what you can do. I'm like, but how? Well, maybe it was the lack of examples. I'm not sure, but those videos didn't fill me with, oh yeah, let's give it a go. And to be completely frank, the only reason I gave it a go is because I was procrastinating with my story because I was outlining lots of stuff and I was like, I want to outline. I don't know how to outline in Obsidian because I don't want freaking 30 headings of stuff going down a page, scrolling up and down. I want it somewhere else. And for those that have been watching my NaNoWriMo summary videos, I started off doing it in Excel. I started off doing my outlines in Excel. And I didn't like it because I couldn't link to anything. Then I went to Obsidian Canvas and I was using a combination of data view queries and cards. And that's why I tried Canvas Candy. I was like, okay, we've got the Apollo timeline view. Maybe that will work for my book, which I tried. And did it work? Yes. But there were bits I didn't like. And the main bits I didn't like were actually solved with the recent table update.
Oh, nice.
So is there anything else you want to mention before we get into the update?
Let's get into the update.
Okay, so give me a sec.
As they say, shiny new things.
Yeah, someone's just sending me messages when they know that I'm on a call. Silly of them. It was an editor. So, shiny new things. The tables inside of Obsidian have
brotherly sisterly love in that bit. I felt that. It's like silly that. You know I'm on a call.
She can check the calendar. She never checks the calendar. Okay, side rant. We have a shared calendar, specifically so we don't get in each other's way. When she's in lecture, I can see she's in lecture so I don't message her. But she messages me, even though she knows I'm doing something, and says, sorry, I didn't check. What's the whole effing point of having a shared calendar, you? And then when she asks me questions, it's something that I've already answered either in DaVinci. So I put a note marker on the timeline that she uses in DaVinci, or it's in Obsidian, which we're using for dual scripting. And she'll ask me in Discord. I'm like, did you check the script? No. Why don't you just check the script? It's easier just to ask you. I'm like, seriously? It's the same when I'm doing like checking, like grammar, spelling, academic, scientific writing, checking with her. I'm like, did you put this through Word? Did you put this through Grammarly? Did you put this through any grammar or spelling checker? No. Did you use a dictionary or thesaurus or anything online? No. Why? It's easier to ask you. I'm like, seriously? I am her AI bot, and it's so annoying.
Yeah, I love that.
Right. I don't know whether you have the similar experience, but I am like the search engine of the family. Like if someone has a question, irrespective of whether they can just pull up their phone and search the internet, they'll ask me first to see if I know the answer. Like, oh, do you know when this person was born? No. Oh, do you remember what film that actor was in? No. What's the word for this thing? I don't know.
It depends on what it is. If it's about other people, as in like how they think, the psychology stuff, then yes, I'm the first person that they ask.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same when I was in sport. Like, if anyone had a question about anything that was injury related or biomechanics or training or learning, because I was doing a degree in it, they were like, "Oh, Danny will know that. Oh, Danny will know that." I'm like, I do, but it's besides the point. Right. Side little rant over. Tables
Does she
sucked.
watch does she watch this podcast or listen?
Yeah. What?
Cool.
Well, does she watch or listen? It doesn't really matter because she knows my feelings, and I mean, we are very open. It's
I love it.
yeah, like if so. Yesterday, perfect example. Yesterday, she had a lecture. I don't know what the lecture was about. Some animal thing. She's doing zoology, um, and she was frustrated. Instead of ranting or keeping it in to herself, instead of ranting with flatmates or keeping it into herself, we got on a Discord call. I carried on writing, and she sat there in her room, wherever she was, ranting about the lecture, saying, he doesn't know this, he doesn't know that, he didn't do this, why are we doing that? This is so pointless, blah, 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 while I'm writing. And she's 25 minutes went past. I didn't really pay much attention, but she just ranted. And then when she slowed down, I said, do you feel better now? She said, yeah, thank you. And then she just left the call.
I love it.
And she does the same when I'm here, except instead of it being on a Discord call, she opens up the door and stands right there and just rants while I'm looking at the screen. I'm like, and then carry on. And she knows I'm not paying attention, but it's just someone to rant to. That's the sort of relationship we have as siblings. So yeah, even if she was to hear me ranting, she'd just do the same and rant about me, and I'd go, okay.
We should have her on the podcast.
No.
Oh, yes. Now I definitely want that. You were no. Yes.
It would just become like spouts between siblings.
I know.
Which I think is one of the. I know we've put this off for like 20 minutes now talking about the actual update. but this is probably why when I get to online conversations, because my sister and I are so open. Like there is nothing. If I don't like something about what she's doing, I tell her. If she doesn't like something about what I'm doing, she tells me. Like there's no tiptoeing around no, that was dumb. Why did you do that? I don't know, because I did. Well, that was stupid. Well, don't do that again. Okay, I'll probably do it again, but you can tell me off next time, sort of thing. Like it's just blunt. Like I was watching one of her edits in DaVinci and I was like, that looks really cool. Actually, why have you used so many nodes? That's a waste of space. And she came back to me and said, well, it looks cool. I'm like, yeah, but it takes longer to render. I don't care. It looks cool. Like that was the conversation. And I guess from a coaching, teaching perspective, because I am essentially the coach, as it were, in that situation with the editing, because it's the channel that I've created, the YouTube channel I created that she's editing for. And she is part of the business, even though sort of family relation, and it's just completely open. She says what she wants. She's writing a script at the moment for a video, and I gave critiques, and she was like, I don't care. I'm doing it this way. Okay.
It's my way. I like it.
It's giving her feedback, which she has said that lecturers don't. Like they'll just say good, bad, expand more. That's it. Because they've got so many people to give feedback on. So when I gave her feedback and she argued back at me, I then responded, unlike lecturers who don't respond. And she was like, oh yeah, I've never thought about that. Or I didn't think about doing this. Or, oh, maybe that's what they meant when they said this thing. And it's just actual conversation, helping.
Anyway.
Yeah. Markdown tables sucked in Obsidian.
Yeah, they did.
Like, really sucked. I completely avoided them. Even with the advanced tables plugin, I struggled to use them. Now, oh, they're nice. They are nice. And it's small things. You can add hotkeys. So when you want a new column, Control-Shift-Arrow key to the right, Control-Shift-Arrow key to the left. New row, Control-Shift-Arrow key down or up. If you want to go down like row after row, you can push Enter and it makes the new row for you, which is nice. Tabs are the same going between columns. So the actual in-table writing experience is nice.
Yeah.
Then you can just move columns. You can go to the top, click, drag over, and drop it. It's nice. It's easy. And one of the things that I was not expecting to come with this was the ability to highlight cells, copy that, and paste it somewhere else in the table. So if you've got like 5 columns, 5 rows, and you want the 3x3 grid in the middle to be moved 1 row down, previously you'd have to move the 3 rows down and then add the rows and columns back up because you had to do it row by row or column by column. Now you can just highlight the 3x3, cut with Control X, then click on the top left cell that you would do in Excel and then paste. So it's just like cell editing, which is nice.
And must have been one heck of a thing to like visually code.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as all the other tables, the basic tables in all the other apps. It's still missing list formatting, which is a bit of a pain because you can't have tick boxes in there yet. I think that's on their sort of like roadmap development ideas, because you can't have bullet lists either or numbered lists. They're sort of just showing source code. But when that does come in, I mean, you've got the highlights, the bolds, and italics, so I'm expecting the list markdown to come in there as well. But when that comes in, I'm going to move completely away from Notion. The only reason I'm using Notion is because tables in Obsidian sucked. But
yeah.
as soon as I have tick boxes in there, I'm good. So how I'm actually using the table with my plotting at the moment is very similar to how J.K. Rowling did her storyboarding for the Harry Potter books. And what she did to keep track is she had a table. Yes, she wrote it out handwritten, and she had loads of them scattered all over the place. She had arrows going backwards and forwards. But she had the chapters, 1 through however many chapters there were. Then she had the time of like the year it was. Obviously, Harry Potter's in years. My book also happens to be in years. Most books are done through time. So whether that's a week, a month, or a year. So I have months as well as a second column inside of a table. And then she's got the plots. And that's what I was struggling to do in the canvas. In the canvas, I could have like the timeline, as it were, going from left to right. But navigating the plots as well was difficult. Keeping track of all that information, I either needed groups that was going like across or down with the timeline going across or down. And it filled up a lot of space. The canvas became quite big.
That would be a pain in the ass.
Exactly. Quickly going back and forth, it was difficult. Which is why I struggled outlining, because when you look at the outlines that Brandon Sanderson does, Neil Gaiman does, all those sort of prolific writers, they spend so much time writing that the outline is done, but they are so familiar with the outline because it's the story that they're going through that they don't really need to check it that much. They do their outline points, they have their points, they put it in whatever chapter they need to, and then they have an outline file for reference. But they don't get back to the outline file for reference often because they're just telling the story. That's a skill they have. I have not developed yet because I don't write stories like that. I don't write like 10 novels a year. So I don't have the ability, I have not developed that skill to remember the outline.
Yeah, so you need it.
yeah, I can't write chapter 2 whilst remembering the 3 plot points of chapter 1 to add little teaser bits in. No, I need to go back and figure out what I'm talking about. And the outline just wasn't doing it for me. I just could not. I spent 10, 15 minutes reading the outline to remind myself of what the plot point was that I wanted to find. And then going back to the chapter, I'd forgotten what I was writing about. So I then spend like a couple of minutes rereading the last sentences. I'm like, okay, that's what I'm writing about, whilst trying to remember the plot. And it was not fun. Okay. It's the biggest struggle I've had writing this fantasy book. I have come to a somewhat solid solution. My non-fiction writing, the way that I do an outline, and the outline is it's a script of bullet points, basically. And because non-fiction is simple, it can just read as a list of bullet points, so it sort of makes sense. Then once I've got the bullet points, I can read through them, get an understanding of the story, and then write it, because the article is only 3,000 words, probably at max. But the book, 70,000 words. I can't just do a quick read of the outline.
Yeah, can. What are you talking about?
So what I needed was I need a bullet point outline of the book, which is what the table gives me. Yeah. I can look at column 2, nice. Column 2, which is like the plot. Look down the plot. I'm like, okay, that's that plot. Right, got it. Where am I right now in the chapters? Okay, I'm at chapter 6. That plot point is currently midway through. That plot point's towards the end. That plot point hasn't even started yet because I've only teased it. And I can see that in a table straight away, which is nice. And I can click on the cell and then just edit the cell.
Nice.
I don't have to go into a source code block to navigate back to no. I just click the cell and edit the cell.
Nice. I'm looking forward to playing with that. Looking forward to playing with both of them.
Yeah, it makes life easy. And there have been other improvements inside of Obsidian with this update, but they're really small ones that you wouldn't notice unless you're in Obsidian, like a lot. I've noticed some of them. I know some of the improvements that we spoke about earlier is metadata menu version 2, so I'm going to have to double check whether the improvements are Obsidian specific or whether they're plugin specific. But I'm just reading through the changelog now. Obsidian will now use system settings for light and dark mode. I like that. Improve the experience when creating a new vault from scratch. I have noticed that because I make lots of vaults to test things and break things, which helps me learning. But I believe there it is, quality of life updates. So files from outside Obsidian can now be dropped anywhere in the File Explorer pane instead of on top of the vault name. That was nice. That's nice. So when I export the manuscript or export a file as a Word doc, typically I just throw it in the main vault folder. But sometimes I want to bring a Word doc that I have saved elsewhere into Obsidian so I can just quickly find it. It's one of those workflow things. I don't keep it there. It's just bring it in. And yeah. That's a nice quality of life thing. And then similarly, dropping a file on top of any item in a folder will cause the file to get imported into the particular folder, which again, it's what you would expect to see in Obsidian with all the other files and folders. It just now works with others, which is nice. Pressing Control/Command F, depending on what operating system you're on, in any view with a search input, including backlinks or properties, will now focus the search input. Which is like when you click to find something, it will take you to whatever the search input is, which is one of those quality of life small things that just saves the scrolling of the mouse wheel. Yeah. Menu options with the ... pane menu. It's just like if you're going into them, it's improved slightly, but if you're not in there often, you won't see them. And some of the other things I don't think are that relevant. There's just sort of bug fixes and developer stuff, but there's lots of small things that I've really liked. Is there anything that sticks out to you?
Oh, unclosed square brackets will no longer cause the next line to get rendered as a link. That's quite nice. There's a little bug fix there.
Yes. Yeah. There.
Outside of that, there's just some really nice stuff. Just nice stuff.
I didn't know that one. I'm going to pay attention to that one. I was just reading through some of the bug fixes. Apparently, it was a bug. Didn't really recognize that was a bug. But word count and character count status bar items now ignore front matter.
Oh, that's fascinating.
I didn't realize that was a bug. I thought it was deliberate.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Right. Well, that helps my word count a little bit. I mean, even though I use better word count and the long form plugin to help me with the word counts, but yeah, that does help.
Oh, updated auto pair brackets behavior so that links with an apostrophe can be typed without the apostrophe getting paired. Yes, I like that. That's another one that always happens to me.
Yeah,
like that.
that's actually something that I would see. So for the first 7 chapters of the book, I linked all of the characters with the file. And then I decided, you know what, I'm not actually using the link to do anything. So what I'm going to do instead is just in the front matter of the chapter, just say, I mentioned this character, and link the character there. But what I was doing was putting like aliases and putting like, so one of the characters is called Rose. So I was like, Roses, Rose. And then like the full name, like first name and last name. And they were all like aliases. So I could get the right thing to show. But yeah, putting the S on the end of links was not fun. Apparently, it's going to be easier now.
Nice, I liked that. I'm excited to explore the table features more because I would definitely be using that plus TFT hackers, canvas candy. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Before we get on to databases, I think it's worth exploring the Obsidian sync.
Yes, that's very nice.
So, for those unfamiliar, Obsidian Sync is the paid feature in Obsidian. You have to actually buy it, which some people don't like, but it's a sync feature. Cloud services do it, but cloud services have restrictions in that it's not private. You can't keep it to yourself. Whereas Obsidian Sync, the developers don't have access to it. So if you lose your key, then say goodbye to the to the vault because they can't get it back. They can't do anything about it. They can't access it at all. So don't lose the key, your password. But with the Obsidian Sync, what they've done is this is also on their roadmap. Like enhancements are on the roadmap as well, which maybe we can get to after this. But they've made it bigger. And they said they've made it better, faster, and smoother. That's in their blog post title. But instead of 5 volts, I only use 4 at the moment. You can have 10, which is really nice. Why you would need 10 volts, I have no idea. Probably because people are splitting up their research into different volts. I personally don't like doing that because I like to see everything in an overview, which requires everything to be in one folder. But if you want to have smaller volts, it's understandable. So now in Sync, you can have 10. Again, way more than you really need, in my opinion. Flexible storage. Now, I'm going to read out what it says. It says, per volt storage limits have changed to a single account-wide storage limit. This means you can allocate your storage any way you want across all your vaults. The reason this is useful is if you have a small vault and a big vault, previously it was just you have a limit and it's split out evenly. So I think the limit was 50 gigabytes. So if you had 5 volts, you would have 10 gigabytes per volt. But if one of the volts was never going to get to 10 gigabytes, you wouldn't be able to split it. Now you can. So you can say, this is a small one, only give this 2 gigabytes. Whereas this is a big one, give it 17 gigabytes. Which, for those with multiple volts, is useful. It's nice. But the next point is you now have 100 gigabytes. So it's double the size. For those that have Obsidian Sync already, you automatically get the upgrade. You don't have to do anything. They've upgraded your Sync account. For those that don't have Sync, buy Sync before this comes into place, which is January 2024. Then you get them at the early bird pricing. Yeah. So if you don't have Sync, buy Sync.
Let's get it now.
Yes. I am going to mention that in my update video because like I think people that are debating about getting sync really need to get sync before January 2024, so they get all of these expansions because it's going to be big.
Yeah, it's huge.
100 gigabytes is a lot of data saved.
But we get 50 according to this. If you're a current sync subscriber, your plan has automatically been upgraded to the 50 gigabytes of flexible storage.
Yes. Yes. So the 100 is the paid boost, I believe. Like if I understand it correctly, you can pay for 100, but the boost is going to go up to 50 for, I think, is it? Because I was reading Capano talking about this. I will probably need, if you're going to buy it, obviously double check what's what and what you need to buy. But I think Capano was saying that there's the default version, there is the increased paid version, which is the 100 gigabytes, and then you have the older version, which is at the moment I think it's 10 gigabytes at the moment. So yeah, I think you pay for the 100, but you get the 50 if you're already on it, so you don't need to do anything about it. So yeah, you can see you got 10 gigabytes for $10 a month, or $8 a month billed yearly, or 100 gigabytes for $20 a month, or $16 a month billed yearly. But if you already have Obsidian Sync now, you get 50 gigabytes as the early bird pricing.
Either $10 or $8 a month billed yearly.
Yes. So join Sync now and get early supported holiday deal. Yeah. So that's the 50 gigabyte storage. So yeah, in January, it will be 10 gigabytes or 100 gigabytes. Early is you can get 50, which we already have. So you get half of the.
More set. I think 50 is a good amount.
I haven't used the 10 that we had to start.
No, me neither.
So I mean, I've got over 6,000 files, and I haven't used 10 gigabytes. So 50 gigabytes will last me.
Yeah, and I think perhaps one of the things that might put people up is that they think they're going to fill it out really quickly, but they're really not, because most of the files that are syncing are markdown.
And they're so small.
They're tiny.
They are so
kilobytes.
Small. I'm going to very quickly go into my sync vault. So for reference, I have used 6.16 gigabytes worth of data. So I'm just over halfway of that small package. And I'm going to look at my vault. I have, oh, come on, Sydney, wake up. There we go. 6,412 files with 21 folders. So call that 1 gigabyte per 1,000 files, I guess. And my files have on average 2,000 words in. Like some of the files are going to have like 5,000-6,000. Some of them are going to be much smaller at a couple hundred. So that's a lot of data. That's 3 years worth of Obsidian use right there.
Yeah.
So 10 gigabytes is enough for most people for a couple of years at least. 50 gigabytes? Yeah, you're sorted. 100 gigabytes, I don't know what you're doing. I really don't know what you're doing. You're writing
a lot of PDFs, videos, and audios, maybe?
Yeah, but you still don't need those synced with, unless you're going to sync it through the Obsidian Cloud Sync, which why you would do that, I don't know. Like you don't need to sync them to devices. And not being funny, if you're working with lots of PDFs, I imagine you have a PDF manager, something like Zotero or EndNote or something else like that, which uses sync as well. So, and they have cloud services for the sort of stuff as well. So, yeah, I mean, maybe PDFs, but it's a lot.
It is.
Yeah, we've got those sync changes, and moving on to the roadmap, because there was roadmap stuff for collaborative sync. It's on. So for those unfamiliar with the roadmap, there's an active section, which at the moment they're properties improvements, which I'm liking the property improvements. I like the metadata menu one, which we'll get to in a second. And they're working on table editing. But in the planned, which I'm going to skip past databases because that's what we'll talk about later, there is sync collaboration improvements. And it says tracking changes across the vault. Which to me means you will be able to see the tracking changes through each user in collaborative syncs. That's the way I interpret this, because it's collaboration improvements. So if I make an edit to a file and you make an edit to a file, it will be able to identify which user somehow is making the change. I would imagine the user is going to be associated with the device that's synced to the Vault, because I already know the commentator plugin is looking at using user edits as well. What that would mean to me is the conflict issues that we're currently getting, that we would currently get inside of Obsidian, where if I write something at the same time as you, it will throw up a hissy fit and it will pick one. It will pick whoever finished last, basically. With this, you'll be able to see the changes. So I would be able to see, potentially with a notification, that, oh, you edited something the same time I edited something. Whether they then improve those conflict issues, I'm not sure, but we'll be able to see those changes, whereas at the moment, we'd have to go looking.
Yeah.
And that could being the operative word, live editing in Obsidian doable without being on a call saying, are you editing? No, okay, I'm going to type something.
Yeah.
Which is very, very nice. If that could replicate what the Google Doc, Microsoft Word experience feels like, with plugins like Commentator coming out, I'm very, very hopeful for Obsidian being a collaborative word tool. I mean, it already does what I need with Obsidian. I just flicked the thingy of a jumper in my eye. Yeah, I'm already working with my sister, with the editor, on a script inside of my Obsidian Vault. So we're already collaboratively writing in there. So yes, yeah, it's exciting stuff. So metadata menu. We'll talk about the version 2 before we talk about databases, because I think it will preface the database stuff.
I love it. I love it. And so I'm really excited with this new update.
Go on, explain why. I've been speaking for a bit. I mean, I know I like speaking, but
you love speaking. So recently, Metadata Menu have done a new release where they have added, I suppose, icons and the ability to edit it from the properties window on like the view. And so now you can switch between options. So you can, instead of having to always press the little icon, you can now do it on the properties page with the properties, and it looks nice and it's pretty.
And when John says properties, he's talking about the native Obsidian property menu that comes
native
up.
Obsidian properties, which makes that even more exciting.
So if you
just click on it, and you can immediately, so if you have a property which is like numbers, which is what I've got in the Vault that I'm using, where you set the numbers between a certain amount, you just press it and then go boom, it's done. You don't have to the icon. It's one less click, which when you're in there as much as I am and you play there as much as I do, it is so nice.
Oh yes. And
just click go straight in there right away.
I think it gives the database page feel of Notion, because the properties at the top of the file, you click on the drop down, you see the drop down. Whereas with the native Obsidian properties, you don't get the drop down of that specific like class information, because Obsidian looks at the entire vault. So you get every single thing that has been in that property. So if you've got old files like me, you can have old information coming up as a suggested option. And I believe text properties look at all of the text. So if, for example, I've got a status field, it will look at all of the different statuses, not just the statuses for that class. So very nice.
So cool.
Do you want to mention the other updatey bits of metadata menu?
I do not know the other updated bits of metadata menu.
The object field, the JSON field, the YAML
Not a
field.
hope in hell can I explain now.
What and why not? It's easy. Sensing my sarcasm.
Carry on. You can explain that bit because I'm not trying.
So I will preface this by saying at the moment, the metadata menu, because of the updated fields, the indexing of metadata menu is slower. I'm troubleshooting with the developer with the indexing of some of the specific property fields because metadata menu is like so powerful and does so much. It needs to index everything. And because it's indexing everything and trying to calculate everything, if you have properties like formula properties that are doing calculations, there are loops in the background that gets confused. And when it's trying to index everything, it's because it's creating table views inside of the classes and also indexing all of the different property types. At the moment, it's slow. Like the indexing is slow. Once it's indexed your vault, it's good. It's fine. It works. But there are some things inside of some of the bigger built out vaults that are slowing down the indexing, which the developer and I are sort of troubleshooting. But once it's indexed, you can then add object fields. And if you're in metadata menu right now and you have a look, you can see the different types. So if you click on the icon, down the bottom you have project, or you have your class type. And then next to it, you'll see 3 different icons. Previously, there was only a settings cog where you'd go into the class to change the settings. But now you have the insert missing fields for that class as an icon. You also have insert missing fields for the class itself. So inside of a class, you can have another class, right? That's the child classes. So for me, I have essay inside of project. So I can insert the missing fields of the essay. And the reason they're now 2 different buttons is because I have the essay class inside of the project class. But I have a field that says priority. And I can make that field an object field. So instead of it being a drop down, it can have something inside of it. So I can say I have a project, then I have a status or a priority. Let's go with status because I think that would be easier to conceptualize when thinking about it. I can share my screen, but I'm not going to be able to show anything because I don't have this set up. So you have project, you have essay class, then you have status. And inside of status, you have video, essay, or blog. So you have a list.
Oh.
Inside of a list.
So you would select one of those, which would then trigger all of the statuses.
Just the status you want. So
Ooh.
I can create a file, an essay file, and I can go into the status, and then inside the status go, oh, okay, I want this specific status. The example that metadata menu gave is a location. So you can have a location field, and then if you've got work, home, business, I don't know, sport, you can have those 4 locations as an option inside of the location field. And then inside of that, you can have the address, the road, the street and stuff. So you have nested field properties, which is what's called an object.
One field property.
Yeah. So you have a field that says location. And then inside of that location, it essentially opens up like a second class window. It's not a new class. It's just an object field.
And they've done that. If you look at one of your classes, they actually have that set up.
What do you mean?
It looks like so I've just opened settlement on my thing, and it has a field property in the properties, which appears to have all of the properties.
Potentially. I'd have to actually look at your Obsidian to see if we're talking about the same thing, because there's other features that they brought in, that the developers brought in. You can see everything. Yeah, because there's so what I previously did is I had a class field so I could select the classes.
Yeah.
But they've just added that as a default thing now. So you can always select what the class of the file is. You don't need to add that in, which again is very nice. So the power of metadata menu is increasing with the ability to change the fields inside of with the properties, and then the object fields as well. It's going beyond. I mean, it already went beyond Notion because you could have classes and different things, but it's going well beyond Notion now with the object style field types. Then on top of that, which is what I've been exploring recently, is the table view has also had some updates. So you can now save a view in the table view. So a table view is class specific, and if you click on, so if you're in one of those icon windows, you click on the button down the bottom, it will bring up that class, and you'll see a table view.
Not see that.
Yeah. So there's always been the table view, but it's been fairly limited. It's not bad because you can still interact with all the properties from there. But if you click on, so at the top there's a menu, and you can select the display filters, which brings up all the properties.
Oh, that is nerdy and beautiful, and I love it.
And so you can reorganize the columns, and you can hide the columns, just like you would do in a database view. So you can click on the arrow.
That kills that database folder plugin, the Notion-like databases, doesn't it?
Yeah, DB folder. You bye. Bye.
Bye DB folder. Bye bye.
Yeah, I mean, this already challenged DB folder. It's the things DB folder had over this view was the fact you could hide properties, which you can now do in the table view. You could move columns left and right, which you can now do in the table view. And the only thing database folder has over this table view is the level of filtering. That's the only thing it has.
I'm just having a moment right now.
So
I'm just having a moment.
So while you're having a bit of a moment over there, the way table view currently works is obviously via data view. So it looks for literals. So you can type a word in and it will filter for the word of the field type. What that does mean, though, is if you have a field-specific property, such as a Boolean, it will look for literals. So you can look for true, but you can't look for false, because false in data view is read as a Boolean, not as a string, so the query just doesn't work. That's some of the finicky parts of data view that those familiar with the query will know and be like, that's annoying, and the developer hasn't put in the table view yet. But it doesn't really matter because you can see so much in the table already that you can see most of it anyway with the tick boxes and everything else. So feel free to have an explore. But once you've saved a view, you can save a view. So I'm just going to save a test view to make sure that I'm not losing my marbles. And once you've saved the view, you can then go into the drop down of that view. So it's like a table view that you get inside of Notion, saved for the filters and the sorts and stuff. And it's in a class. So it's not like Notion where, oh, I have my task database and I have my project. John just sitting there giggling and bouncing.
Right. I'm not sorry, actually. It's brilliant.
But yeah. So I'll finish off my sentence and then you talk. The table database in Notion and the project database in Notion are different databases because metadata menus based on classes. You can have a project in essay, in video. You can have it in multiple table views, which is what it is. It's a table view query, not a database that's specific to pages. John.
I'm just getting excited because one of the things that I'm doing, as I think we discussed in the last episode, or maybe we talked, whatever, is building my own D&D world, my own campaign world. And one of the things that I want to be able to do is to have all of the regions, because now I have the continents and the regions and I'm building that world up. And I was just started fiddling with this and I'm just like, settlement, location. And of course, I've got multiple different campaigns I'm running. So I could have a campaign like selector using the new objects field that could select that campaign.
You
And
don't
then
even need an object field. You could just have it as a drop-down select.
oh, it's too good. And then I can have the different locations in settlement, hide all the shit I don't care about, keep all the shit that I want to keep, and it's just so
Yep. Yep, it is.
and even just the regions thing, I would have probably that would be the one that I'd have the groups on, because I'd have it as Forgotten Realms or Cardonis, which would allow me to select the continents and the regions and all. I'm gonna get so nerdy today. And just this is such a simple, stupid thing of being able to sort and hide. Oh, I'm enjoying this.
It's one of those hidden gems in metadata menu that I think people overlook with this plugin.
Yeah.
The table view, because it's hidden. Well, I say hidden. It's in classes. And unless you're familiar with how the classes work, it may go over your head a little bit, which is understandable because it's a very involved plugin.
And I think this is stepping in the direction of it becoming less involved, I would say.
I personally do not understand why it's not more popular. I'm going to do a quick check in the community plugin browse because I haven't done this for a while. Metadata menu. It's got 72,000 downloads. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah. It's got 72,000 downloads. DataView has 1,245,831. Excalibur has 1,347,005. Right, the calendar plugin has 866,000 pretty much. Metadata menu has like none. It is, I think it is the most underrated plugin.
That is incredibly upsetting for me.
I'm actually going to have a look at DB Folder for comparison. DB Folder's got almost double the amount.
Yeah, but that's because it used to be called Notion Tables, didn't it?
DB Folder, 194,000. Metadata menu, 72,000. Meta Edit, which is next to it, is 69,000. This version 2 update of metadata menu, I need the video to do well because the plugin's so underrated.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean,
right.
I think it doesn't help that the videos, no shade on them, are quite bad.
The developer videos.
Yeah, they're very developer-focused videos, which aren't good for users, because I remember how long it took me. It wasn't until I saw your example that I was like, oh, this is really cool. Why is nobody using this? Why am I not using this? I am using this right now.
It is like, it is a must-have plugin for me. Like DataView, metadata menu. They're it. Like I can go without Commander, I can go without everything else, but if you want to do anything when it comes to task, project, file management inside of Obsidian, I think these two plugins are just. I can see you fiddling with the mouse.
There were fields missing from one of my things. So I opened it up to put them back in, and then I saw the little button thing that you were talking about. And just pressed it. I was like,
but yeah, it's those two plugins I think are needed almost to have a useful experience with properties inside of Obsidian.
Yeah,
this update is just like, wow, amazing.
I can't even begin to react because that's so exciting.
And it's easy to get there as well because the table view obviously is on a class. So you can just click on the icon, which the icon appears everywhere, and then click on whatever the class is down in the bottom, and then it takes you to the table view, which you can then go to. And I believe, I haven't experimented with, you can save a table view in a star. So I'm going to test this actually because I know it was in the notes. When you star it, there were some other updates as well to. Actually, this might be useful to you. If you go to the files class settings of any class,
Yeah.
there was a way to map to tag, which is still there, but you can now say file paths and bookmark groups. So you can say if the darting around like a meerkat. So you can say if there is a file in this folder, make it this class. Your face. And you can also say if there is a file in this group, bookmarked group, make it this class. So if you want a file to be a specific class while you're working on it, maybe it is an active file, you can have an active bookmark group, save a file to a bookmark group, then the active class is given to that file, and then all of those properties are given to it. Then when you move it out of the bookmark group because it's no longer active, the property what are you doing?
Can't cope. I'm too excited now.
This is all going to come out like version 2 update video, but there were loads of updates like this, like small things that unless you can visually see what that actually means functionally, it's like, yeah, so what?
File, I didn't even know. I was literally in this last week doing all of this stuff. Literally after our call, I went nuts and went crazy with it. And I'm in here again this week. I'm like, because if you remember rightly, I had a problem that I wanted to solve about it being specific groups. And now with this, I can, because I have separate folders for each of my parties.
Yeah,
And then
I mean, there's so many different ways you could do it in metadata menu that I think is just like Obsidian, because, well, it is Obsidian. There's so many different ways to do the same thing. And it's just finding the way that suits you right. I would say the only limitation with all of these new upgrades and updates is that changing a field type once you've made it is now harder.
You can't now, from my understanding.
You can, but it makes the indexing have a bit of a moment. It says that you can't because what it's doing is it's indexing it differently, which is why the indexing is taking a little bit longer, so that you can add objects and it index everything appropriately, which is why when you now look at the hardcode file of the class, it's now added the information inside of the property. So you need to go to the source mode to see the classes rather than the gobbledygook we had previously. Which it's a limitation to an element of changing the classes, but it's not really that much of an issue in my view at the moment, unless you're doing lots of making and editing and changing, which I don't think many people are doing. Most people set it up and then they're good to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, and this all ties in. It's not letting me star the view, so I'm going to have to explore that a little bit further before I do a video about it. But yeah, databases is what Obsidian have in their planned roadmap.
Oh, yes.
And it says create dynamic tables using data stored in note properties.
Data view.
I don't know. I don't know. I was talking about this yesterday in the Discord event and I wasn't sure, and I figured I'd get your thoughts on this. How do you think they're going to implement dynamic tables using data stored in note properties?
I don't know. I hope data view.
I came up with two possibilities. One being code blocks like data view.
Yeah.
Which is what it is. It would be a code block based query thing, which I don't think they will do.
No.
And the reason I don't think they'll do it is because of the last two updates.
Properties. No, I don't think it'll be like that. Yeah.
Properties is UI, it's click buttons push in, and tables, the 1.5 update, which is click button push in live preview. They're not source code editing. Like
as virtual front end editing, editory, edit it.
Exactly. Like I was saying yesterday on the event, the updates to me seem more like front end updates rather than back end updates. Most of Obsidian has been back-end style updates. It's, hey, you can now do this with front matter. You can now do this with YAML. This markdown now does this. And you can now move these files, etc., etc. They're much more codey developer updates. These last two, properties and tables, they're making the background stuff easier to use for non-developers, non-coders.
Yeah.
And I feel database is going to be something similar.
Yeah, I agree. That's going to be super cool.
However,
and it also doesn't replace data view, because then data view can be data view.
However, it does beg the question, how do you then put it in? Is it going to be like a table? And if it is going to be like a table, because obviously they still have to work on Markdown because they are files, what is the Markdown of a database going to look like?
Well, yeah.
In line.
Just a normal table.
Yeah, but it can't.
Generates a table.
But it can't. Because they need to query the note data.
So it's going to have to be a code block. Or some form of visual code block.
It would need to be an interactable code block. And when you push buttons in the interaction, in the view that you're seeing, it, similar to the table view, it adjusts the query. So if, for example, this is me theorizing, if, for example, you have a query and you're looking, so say you're searching for files in folder 1, inside of the query code block, it will say, using data view language here, from folder 1. Yeah. But to do that inside of Obsidian, you would click in the search and type folder 1. So the front-end UI would be an interactable code block, but not a code block. It would look like the table that we're seeing. So it would be maybe a search window, like a search bar window that goes across the file. Then you click in the search and you type in folder, then it shows you folder 1, then it shows you all of those files. Then you can click on the columns that it's showing you through the table to filter and sort and do the databasey stuff. And as you push buttons, it adds information to the code block in the background that's on the Markdown file.
Yeah.
Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah.
That's how I think they're going to do it. Because otherwise you won't be able to have databases in line and inside Markdown, which goes against the philosophy of Obsidian, which is making everything Markdown, making everything plain text.
Yeah.
The other way they do this is like they did with the canvas, which I don't dislike, but I'm not a particular fan of, because it means you need another tab and you can't just put it on a file somewhere.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of it being another. The clunky part of Canvas is like it's a completely separate file type. Embedding it, I don't even think is possible. I don't know. I haven't tried because
you just don't. You can't interact in it. It's like a preview image.
Meh.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't like that. That worries me.
Yeah, me too. I hope, fingers crossed, I hope that they develop the databases as they've done with the tables. And I'm theorizing the Markdown on the back end is going to be a code block of some kind. Because when you look at the tables on the back end, it is still Markdown tables. It's just, instead of it being a code block that you edit, as was, it's now a live preview version of a table that you can edit.
If it would work, I often am working in like I don't even remember what this view is now. Code view, the source view.
Source mode.
Yeah, I wonder what that would look like in tables now.
I would imagine it's just going to look like a table, like a Markdown table. I haven't tested because I don't typically test those sorts of things. I'm just going to very quickly Going to my Obsidian Control P table. There we go. Let's just add some columns and then go to source mode. What that's going to show is, yeah, a markdown table with lines going down and then the columns going across. So it just looks like a normal markdown table. But when you're in the live preview, you can do all the things that I mentioned, adding new rows and columns and stuff.
Interesting.
And that is my worry is not the right word, but yeah, concern about databases and what it's going to look like is it's markdown. Is it going to be a markdown table with some code written in it? Or is it going to be a code block that renders the answers? I think it's going to be a code block because of the amount of functionality it's going to need with searching note properties. But I don't know. And I'm not a developer, so I may sound like a developer and I may sound like I know what I'm talking about. No, I'm guessing. I'm a pseudo developer.
Love it. Cool. I am nervously excited. I am nervous-sighted.
Nervous-sighted. Okay. There's nothing really else in the roadmap that really piques my interest. RTL improvements. I don't read right to left, so not for me.
Quick capture's kind of cool.
Sorry?
Mobile quick capture.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's going to be a widget of some kind, but Morgan is just...
Yeah, same. Yeah. PDF annotation is kind of fun, but Zotero.
Zotero, yeah. Full text search on Publish. If I used Publish anymore, that would be nice. But I don't use Publish because Substack email goes straight to person. So I don't have to do the whole changelog update thing. So yeah, databases is the next big thing, I think, that's going to come, that's going to grab my attention the most. But sync is certainly something that I need to mention on the channel. so people don't miss.
Yeah.
Yeah, exciting times for Obsidian development. Right, if anyone has any questions or any comments, let us know in the comment section below on YouTube or reach out to us in the Discord.
Bye.